Every company is prone to IT issues, but rarely does it ruin so many people's lives. In this video, I'll be talking about the post office scandal dating between 2000 and 2015, which still affects people to this day. People lost their livelihoods, their reputation, their chance at a good retirement. Some even went to jail for crimes they did not commit. The situation caused many to suffer from financial hardship, depression, anxiety, and stress for years, and some even tried to commit suicide. But before we get into the details, what is the post office? The post office has over 11,500 branches across the UK, offering postal and banking services, as well as other products such as travel, insurance, and broadband. Only 1% of post offices are directly managed by Post Office Limited, with around 99% operated by sub-postmasters. These are business people ranging from individuals such as corner shop owners to larger franchise partners such as the Cooperative or WH Smith. It all started back in 1999, when the post office installed Fujitsu's Horizon accounting system. This system incorrectly reported shortfalls, making it appear that money was missing. The faulty software led to 736 branch sub-postmasters and counterstaff to be prosecuted over the period from 2000 to 2015. Sub-postmasters had actually complained about this software, claiming that there were bugs in the system. The post office ignored this evidence. I'll talk more about personal stories at the end. This is a story which unfortunately plays out far too often. Imagine that you wanted to start a new chapter to your life. You bought a post office. You open your first day and all is well, but soon you start noticing problems with the accounts. Your accounts do not match those on the Horizon system. You check your figures and find no issue, so you call the helpline. The helpline advises you how to fix the issue on your system. After following these steps, it doesn't resolve the issue, and actually increase the discrepancy. Now you're told to pay up. In fear of being prosecuted, you pay the amount due. Following this, the discrepancies keep happening. The helpline won't help. In fear, you remortgage your home to pay off the discrepancy. But it doesn't get better. Eventually you can't pay anymore, so hide that there's any differences and accept the amount shown. You know this isn't the right thing to do, but are not sure what else to do. You don't know that it's affecting others too. Every day you get into work early to try and figure out where it's going wrong. Every day you fear you'll get found out. Until one day, the post office, thinking that you have more cash at hand, wants you to remit a portion of the cash, but you can't. You don't actually have that money. You realise your only option is to get help, hoping by explaining your situation it will all be okay. This is when the auditors come. They confirm the amount you owe, and no one believes your story. You either have to pay up, or face potential jail time. You borrow money from friends and family, do a secondary mortgage on your home, and lose all your life savings to pay off the amount due, even though you know you're innocent. But you don't want to go to jail. Once you paid it back, the post office takes you to court. You're advised to plead guilty. You now have a criminal record. You've lost your job. And on top of that, everybody believes that you're guilty. Even your family are uncertain. You struggle to get a job due to your criminal conviction, and can no longer retire as you've lost all your savings. The prosecutions began in 2000 and continued every year until it was halted in 2014, although another couple were prosecuted in 2015. Firstly, it is important to note that both Fujitsu and the post office knew there were bugs in the software. This was shown by the post office board initially refusing to sign off on the project over software reliability, however only a month later it had been accepted. Who knows if the bugs were fixed in that short space of time? Even if the post office had believed it to be working as expected now, it should have been suspicious with the number of sub-postmasters telling them that it was wrong. Although it appears the post office had incentive not to investigate, based on its service level agreement, to get information from Fujitsu would cost them money. They only had a certain number of free requests. You can see why this could make them reluctant to do so. For them it was easier to blame the sub-postmasters. The victim's website was launched in 2004, allowing victims to share their stories. Following this, there had been numerous reports and programs covering the post office scandal. Due to all this information now being shared, the victims realised they were not alone, as the post office had told many of them that the issue was only affecting them and not others. This led to the Justice for Sub-Postmasters Alliance, JFSA, to be formed in 2009. This initially included a small group of sub-postmasters from around the country. The aim of this group was to get financial support for victims of the Horizon computer system and to expose the cover-up and injustice that had happened. As they managed to get their cause recognised, this led to an investigation to be conducted by Second Sight, independent forensic accountants, after a small group of supportive MPs had appointed them at the request of JFSA. It is worth noting that the Post Office paid the professional fees for Second Sight's investigation. During this investigation, approximately 140 cases were investigated over more than 3 years, starting in 2012. They soon realised that there was a lack of effective investigation, and there could be a significant number of miscarriages of justice. As time went on, they found it harder and harder to get information from the Post Office. They were pushing back more, and the requests for further information were taking longer to be provided. The Post Office refused to accept the outcomes of these reports, instead showing denial and issuing counter-reports. The Post Office even went as far as to stop paying Second Sight right before their final report was circulated. However, this did not stop the cases from going further. Cases were starting to be accepted by the Criminal Cases Review Commission, CCRC, in March 2015. Here the cases would be investigated for potential miscarriages of justice. In 2016, Bates v. Post Office was filed. By July 2017, more than 500 people had signed up. A group litigation order followed, with the first trial held in 2018, with a second trial in March 2019. A settlement was made in December 2019, where the Post Office agreed to pay nearly £58 million. Following this trial, the CCRC referred many cases to the Court of Appeal from 2020 onwards. According to their site, they have referred 60 cases, with 55 being overturned. In January 2020, the Metropolitan Police opened an investigation into Fujitsu's failure to disclose IT issues at court. Fujitsu was a company who ran the accounting software for the Post Office. In November, the investigation was upgraded to a criminal investigation. I could not find any outcome at this time. However, the police did question 2 people in 2021, both former Fujitsu engineers. Cases are still being investigated and overturned to this day. So far, there have been 74 people who have had their cases overturned, but there were more than 700 convictions which could be related to this IT issue. Let's look into how it affected people over this time, with specific cases to be discussed afterwards. Once the system reported discrepancies, the postmasters spent time trying to figure out why it was happening, reporting the issue. These issues seemed to be ignored, with demands made to make good on payments. The problem got worse when the Post Office sent auditors to their office. In some cases, the amount due actually increased. It was questionable if the auditors were doing their job correctly, as evidence was given that the Post Office auditors were not performing a real audit, and instead were simply assuming that the Horizon system was correct, and comparing these figures to that of the branch. But anyway, if the discrepancy in payments were not settled by the postmasters, they would be prosecuted and jobless. This led to paybacks by borrowing money or using life savings, and some trying to hide these discrepancies. However, they were found out later with the same outcome. A common theme was the feeling of isolation. They were told that it was not affecting anyone else. They also received little to no help in resolving the issue. It was also being said that it was easier and cheaper to go after postmasters than it was to investigate how the discrepancies occurred. There was a common belief that computers could not lie, and so therefore someone had to be held accountable. Tell that to any programmer. Once prosecuted, many were advised to plead guilty in order to reduce their sentence or avoid jail time, which many regretted pleading guilty afterwards. From the accounts of those who were prosecuted, many spoke of suffering from stress, depression, panic attacks, anxiety, nervous breakdowns, and suicidal thoughts. For Tracy, it began with questions about her recent family holiday. Investigators questioned how she paid for everyone to go. Following this, all the family's bank accounts were made available to show no foul play. However, investigators were still not satisfied. She was charged with theft and false accounting 3 weeks later, as well as losing her job. Word got out about her charges, and people started treating her differently. Some refused to talk to her. Others looked at her as if she was a thief. From here, her mental health suffered. She no longer wanted to leave the house. That summer, Tracy tried to commit suicide several times. Tracy, at age 19, was given a 6-month prison sentence, even after her family paid the missing £11,503. After release, Tracy battled mental health repercussions for the next 20 years, and to this day she still cannot have the door closed due to her time in prison. The Post Office in 2020 admitted abuse of process in her prosecution. 18 years after she was sent to jail. Jo had just taken over as postmaster and immediately noticed discrepancies. She went to the helpline following the advice given, however the discrepancy remained. Following this, she sought help again, but this managed to double the discrepancy. She agreed to have the amount taken out of her salary each month. The discrepancies kept growing, which meant the amount she owed was also increasing. Eventually, she ignored the discrepancy, acknowledging Horizon's incorrect figures. Every time she went into the post office, she would feel sick. She would worry that any day someone would come in to audit and find the differences she was now hiding from. Jo resulted in borrowing from neighbours and friends, as well as remortgaging her house. The post office noticed that a lot of cash was supposedly being held on the premises and demanded $25,000 to be remitted immediately. She stayed in her shop that night, as a neighbour helped her to try and figure it all out. Where had it all gone wrong? The next morning, she called the National Federation of Sub-Postmasters. She was advised to get a lawyer, and auditors were sent. She was suspended. As with the others, she was made to feel alone in this issue, with investigators telling her no one else has had these problems, and asking her where the money is. She agreed to pay £36,000 before the sentencing, and pled guilty to false accounting, as was advised by her barrister. In order to do this, a second remortgage of their home was needed. Villagers in the area helped raise the remaining £8,000 after being appalled at Jo's treatment. Many people showed up in support for Jo's trial. Even her vicar delivered a speech, and over 100 people had written character references. She managed to stay out of prison, but still received a criminal record. Jo managed to make a living cleaning houses. The post office stopped them from being able to retire, with her partner still working in his 70s. For Parmold Callier, his own family doubted his innocence, and in 2015 he attempted suicide 3 times. Soon after the Horizon system was installed in his post office, he noticed shortfalls. He would be up until midnight trying to figure it out, even with his 6-year-old daughter sleeping there until he had finished. The audit found a shortfall of £27,000, in which he had to ask his mother for her life savings to make up the loss. He received a 6-month custodial sentence after being advised to plead guilty. He felt he had let his family down. He couldn't care for them as he felt he should have. Eventually the case was overturned, and he was awarded £27,000. As of the 10th of June 2022, there has been 102 completed appeal cases, with 74 convictions overturned. 69 of these victims made a claim to the post office for compensation, of which 66 have been accepted. Currently, no one has been held accountable for the life-changing actions committed by the post office. If you or someone you know has been affected by this, you can access information on the appeals process in the comments below, as well as information on compensation schemes and an updated table of information on the post office prosecutions, showing how many appeals and their outcome. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more business-related content.